This is Souldapop from the future, and now that we've got confirmation of Chevreuse Kid, I recorded the whole video assuming Bennett, but for the teams that feature Pyro and Electro as the carries, Chevy is going to be insane. You're locked out of a red shred, but you weren't getting red shred in the Bennett teams anyway. It's just another mental block you've got to get past. You still get the attack buff from her A4 passive and the damage percent from her C6. She builds stacks more reliably so you don't have to scuff your rotations, and it's all tied to her skill instead of her burst, so energy is a non-issue. That said, Navia and Ning get nothing from her. Now on to the video I recorded before I had confirmation of this. Everything is still accurate, just keep in mind Chevy will be a better alternative in a lot of cases. I've wondered for a long time whether I've been unfair to dual carry teams. Conceptually, they just have a lot of problems. Longer rotations, not having characters with abilities that support those longer rotations. I need to front load more damage because the second carry means not running someone that can keep your damage from completely falling off during your setup. And the fact that front loading all your damage often means not completing your rotation, which can cause some major energy issues in multi-wave content and going into new chambers. However, the biggest problem, at least in my opinion, is that to get enough front-loaded damage to make them viable, they kind of rely on Bennett, but his buff doesn't last long enough to cover both your carries. But like I said, I may have been unfair. Now that we have Navia, a character with a lot of front-loaded damage and a flexible amount of field time, maybe it's time I try some dual carry teams and give them a fair shake. That said, those problems I mentioned aren't going to just go away because I want to Unga Bunga with two characters. So a good place to start would be with addressing them. And it just so happens, we just got a band-aid for a lot of them. Furina. Her skill lasts for 30 seconds, so we can get some persistent damage during our setups on our long rotations. Her burst lasts for 18 seconds, so we've got some wiggle room with our carry's field time. But that raises a new problem. Now we need a healer. Well, like we already mentioned, our bosom buddies are probably going to both want Bennett. That leaves our two carries, which raises another issue. Bennett's our only healer. If we want him to heal over the 70% cap to get more stacks with Furina, we're going to want a healing build. Now I don't have a maiden set, but I do have Song of Days Past. With Furina and built for healing, Bennett should be able to give the set's buff to both our carries. Cool, so we have a template. Furina, Bennett, and two carries. But now we have another problem, the duration of Bennett's burst. It's only 12 seconds. The immediate thought is that, so we need carries that get the biggest hits of their damage in over 6 seconds, but that causes a problem with the set. It takes 6 seconds to give the buff. So what we really need is a carry with a flexible amount of field time to ensure that the other carry has the buff for the biggest hits of their damage. So to do that, we're going to have to break some mental blocks. There are quite a few carries that have a flexible amount of field time, but it's going to seem really weird to not give them the full amount of their field time. To alleviate that, let's try to focus on carries that still give some benefit to the team when they're not on field, and whose damage falls off the longer they remain on field. Bonus points if it lasts a decent amount of time. So now we just need to take a look at carries and determine whether or not we can get the biggest hits of their damage in and make them work with less field time, and sort of base them on whether they're advantageous or disadvantageous to include. For my own sanity, I'm going to limit this to characters I actually own and to put a reasonable amount of base investment into. Even if they don't have their own dedicated artifact set, I could put together some two-piece combos or steal artifacts from someone else for the time being. It should be obvious, but if the team would do more damage by just having one of the carries remain on field instead of swapping into the other carry, that's an immediate disqualifier. Here are the options I came up with. There are two that probably seem really out of place at first glance, so let me explain. With Furina, despite getting additional damage percent the longer they're on field from Furina's burst, Yoimiya and especially HuTao's damage tend to fall off the longer they're on field. However, HuTao provides crit rate, front-loaded HP drain, healing, and damage with her burst, and some off-field pyro damage and application through her blood blossoms. Yoimiya also provides off-field damage and application in addition to an attack buff. Bursting every rotation in a team like this makes a decent portion of their damage front-loaded, and they can both quickly get all 5 hits from Songs of Days Past buff pretty quickly before risking their Pyro application overtaking Furina's Hydro application, while also getting a couple of Pyro particles to feed Bennett. We'll have to see if they work, but conceptually they tick all the boxes we need. Two other standouts here are Raiden and Navia. Both can do a massive amount of front-loaded damage. Both do some off-field damage. Raiden provides a lot of energy to the team and can allow us to do some overvape shenanigans. Navia's field time is really flexible and can generate a lot of particles under the right circumstances. In addition to that, those crystallized shields offer resistance to interruption, which can help keep our rotations tight. Something that's going to be crucial in a team like this. I think regardless of what we go with here, I'll want one or the other. But if that's the case, why not both? This is as Unga Bunga as this is going to get. Off-field Electro and Hydro will make Electro Charge and allow Navia to get a lot of crystallized shards. With Raiden, in this particular team, we shouldn't have to worry too much about energy either. Raiden is on 4-piece Emblem, ER Electro Crit with Catch. Navia is on 4-piece Golden Troop, Attack Geo Crit with Serpent Spine. Both should probably be on Attack % Goblet because there's so much damage % here, but I'm lazy. Navia's signature set and Marashase are obviously better here, but I'm not done farming them yet. Furina is on Golden Troop, HP Crit with Fav. With Raiden here, I could probably get away with a more damage-focused weapon on Furina, but I'm lazy. Bennett is on HP Healing Bonus, Song of Days Past, and Sapwood Blade. Maidens and Noblesse will be decent enough alternatives if you don't have Song of Days Past, but regardless, he needs to be built for healing when run as your only healer in Furina teams. The rotation I've come up with is pretty weird. At full energy, it starts with Furina's skill, then Raiden's skill, then Navia's skill and burst, then Furina's burst, then Bennett burst and skill, then Raiden burst, and 2 in 3 CA's skill. Then Navia skill, into skill, and burst. We have to start with Furina's skill here to drain our HP low enough for Bennett to actually heal. However, after that, the rotation is a lot cleaner. We've already done our Raiden skill and our Navia burst, so now we just need to Furina skill and burst, and Bennett burst and skill. Then we do the same combos we did before with Raiden and Navia. It's kind of like you're pulling onto a track and then following the track. Once you're on the track, everything moves in a nice clean circle. This one's got me hopeful. Granted, my Raiden is C2 and Navia has a pretty major advantage in this abyss, but everything felt really clean and I got to see all those pretty 6-digit numbers. Thing is, that was both our big hitters, so it might all be downhill from here. How about for the next one, we go with something that's already been theory crafted to do pretty well and swap Raiden out for Ningguang. Ningguang generates a fair amount of particles and we can funnel them into Navia, so we can probably get away with not changing Furina, Bennett, and Navia's builds here. Like I mentioned though, I still don't have Navia's signature set, so we're just going to go with 2-piece attack for Ningguang. For her weapon, I'm rocking Skyward Atlas, but Fav can give some extra security. Even without a lot of crit rate, she can reliably proc it because she throws out so many rocks. Go with the catalyst that helps you maintain a balanced crit ratio. I know you might panic using Widsith because, oh no, I might get EM, but to be honest, it ain't that big of a loss. That's almost 500 EM, and you can get yourself a pretty chonky crystallized shield, which can keep your rotation from being interrupted. Not that it's ideal, you'd definitely rather have the 120% attack or 96 damage percent, but it isn't totally useless here. You might think Prototype Amber for Furina stacks, but that might make it end up making it harder for Bennett to get any healing in, and it will definitely make Ningguang not even worth swapping into. Same deal for TTDS. It'll make Navia hit a lot harder, but you'll lose so much damage while on Ning that it won't be worth using her. Plus, that extra HP on both means less stacks when Bennett does heal. I should have mentioned before, those awkward starts that lead into a loop are going to be present in all of these because of the Bennett Furina combo. For this one, we'll go Furina skill, Ningguang skill to funnel particles to Navia, Navia burst to make sure those particles aren't wasted, skill into to catch the particles, Furina burst, Bennett skill and burst, Ningguang skill, burst, charge attack, skill, Navia skill, in 3, skill, burst, in 3, skill, in 2, then Furina skill and burst and Bennett skill and burst, and follow the same combos as before with Ningguang and Navia. Wow, this is complicated. It's less complicated than it sounds. Just give it a try. It feels a lot better once you actually get in the loop. Normally you'd want to burst and skill to make sure Bennett can get a tick of his own healing, but I've had trouble making sure he can burst every rotation without adding extra battery actions without catching his own particles here. From here, it's kind of just mix and match, and I gotta say they all perform far better than I expected. The one caveat is actually building enough ER to burst with them every rotation. With Yanfei, you can burst and automatically have max heals for a CA, then skill and have max heals for another CA. That's all 4 of her biggest attacks all at once, and then you've got a shield for when you swap to your second carry. HuTao was especially surprising. Doing skill and burst immediately after swapping into her and following it up with 2 NACAs, either dash or jump cancels, front loads stacks on Furina because she can drain her own HP, then Bennett heals it, and then she overheals to trigger Furina's passive. After that, you pass a crit rate buff to everyone else and get an overvape with her skill every 4 seconds. I even find myself changing up rotations pretty naturally to give her more field time for times when there's enemies with just a little HP left. That goes a long way toward helping clear up those energy issues that can happen if, say, the next part of your rotation would be a Raiden burst that instantly ends the chamber and would start you out with no energy in the following chamber. She doesn't even need Bennett, so you can just have Furina's skill active and go to town with HuTao when you need to save your burst for the next chamber. With Navia, she can be shielded, and with Raiden's skill active, she can overvape. Same deal with Yoimiya. Skill burst 1-5 in a string, and everyone gets an attack percent buff, and she'll trigger some decent overvapes from off field. She has the same flexibility as HuTao, but admittedly it feels quite a bit worse without Bennett. Should be noted, definitely don't try this with Shimenawas. They need to burst at the start of each of their field time. That just won't be possible with Shimenawas draining 15 energy for its effect. Ningguang and Yanfei can also have this flexibility to an extent, but they have a lot harder time doing cleanup without Bennett, comparatively. Is this a way I'd recommend playing the game in general? Not really, but it'll get the job done in Abyss. In Overworld, it's ironically way more cringe. Things just tend to die before you can even finish your rotations, which seems good until you realize you need your full rotation to have enough energy to even start another rotation. But it is a lot of fun finding ways to play these characters differently and actually find a way to take advantage of the supportive aspects of their kits, especially Yanfei and Ning. It honestly seems like this is the ideal way to play them, considering their damage falls off a cliff when you extend their field time beyond what they do in these teams. This is by no means an exhaustive combination either. This is just me working with the units I have available to me. I think Ganyu and Ayaka, for instance, should also work pretty well together as dual carries. There are also some other combinations with Aggravate and Spread teams that have a lot of potential that I just don't have the right units for. The sky's the limit here, and I'm actually pretty excited to think about all the potential team building strategies this opens up to me now that I've gotten past the mental block of a single dedicated on-fielder or quick swap. Let's just hope it doesn't lead to me getting too lost in the sauce. Anyways, thanks for watching. Drop a like, subscribe, watch the video on screen. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.